diplomatic relationship between the Philippines and China was established on June 9, 1975. Since then, the bilateral partnership between the two countries has reached unprecedented levels in terms of security and regional cooperation, trade, investment, agriculture, tourism, cultural and people-to-people exchanges, which have benefited the two countries and peoples.
Rolling out the red carpet, Chinese President Xi Jinping held a welcoming ceremony for Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. President Duterte's state visit to China is his first visit to a foreign country outside ASEAN since taking office in June. Bilateral relations have gone through many twists and turns over the past few years. Both leaders agreed to sit down this time for talks in good faith.
2.5 years ago, the Philippines took an unprecedented step to shake up the territorial dispute roiling the waters of the South China Sea. For years, 6 nations, including the Philippines and China, have wrestled over control of a smattering of islands and reefs, dotting the oceanic expanse.
The difficulty in the Philippine-China issue is that it concerns territorial sovereignty. In this type of issues, it's very difficult to find a win-win solution because neither side will want to give away.
21st century territorial dispute. China's been building artificial islands in a region of reefs and partially submerged rocks known as the Spratly Islands, in some cases putting in brand new airstrips on locations like the recently constructed island of Fiery Cross. Here's what the island looked like before, and here's what it looks like after this impressive land reclamation project. And Beijing has been issuing warnings to other ships and planes to stay away from these man-made islands.
On one hand, Philippines has pursued territorial claims over the Panatag and Spratly Islands. The Philippines has filed a claim with the United Nations. However, the principal argument will be based on the fact that China, as a member of the UN Security Council, and with its desire to be seen as a peaceful world power, will be bound to be accepted by the UN decision.
It doesn't take an expert to see that the Spratly Islands are much closer to the Philippines than they are to China. So how is China laying legal claim to this territory? Well, Beijing offers up maps dating back to the early 20th century, which have since become known as the 9-dash map, a map that China has even begun printing in the pages of new Chinese passports. The Philippines disputes this, citing the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. It has taken China to the Permanent Court of Arbitration at The Hague, but China has so far refused to attend these hearings, arguing that the court has no jurisdiction in this matter. The U.S. is supporting its longtime ally, the Philippines. In the last year, U.S. warships and warplanes have conducted several so-called freedom of navigation operations, ignoring Chinese warnings and traveling close to China's man-made islands. China opposes the U.S. operations, calling them a threat to peace and stability in the region. But Beijing's actions have also alarmed many much smaller nations in the South China Sea. Critics argue that China is building the case for its territorial claims by quite literally building islands in the sea.
We all know that President Rodrigo Duterte's warm sentiments toward China are no secret. Most recently, he has hailed the benefits of the Philippines' progressing relationship with the Asian neighbor during his third State of the Nation address. And during his third State of the Nation address, Duterte vows to defend the West Philippine Sea amid re-energized relations with China.
The ASEAN events showcased not only the world-renowned Filipino hospitality and organizational capabilities, but also our artistic talent, would like to commend the National ASEAN Organizing Council, led by no less than my Executive Secretary, Salvador Medialdia. Our re-energized relations with China has also led to an unprecedented level of cooperation between our nations on the war against transitional crimes. Our shared intelligence led to the discovery and dismantling of the clandestine Shabu laboratories and the arrest of Chinese chemists with the Dragon organization called Wu Syndicate.
The President has said that our relationship with China has improved. However, it does not mean that we will waver in our commitment, but we will defend our interests in the West Philippine Sea.
Our improved relationship with China, however, does not mean that we will waver in our commitment to defend our interests in the West Philippine Sea. This is why we engage China through this bilateral and multilateral platform, such as the ASEAN-China and the Philippines-China bilateral consultation mechanism.
In addition to this, the warming up of bilateral ties after years of frosty relations can be attributed to Duterte's pragmatic policy. Also, Chinese government has welcomed this positive breakthrough in bilateral relationship on whether or not this was a sound move by the Duterte administration. But the general perception is that Duterte's accommodating policy towards China has temporarily de-escalated maritime tensions and enhanced trade ties. As a small power, the Philippines considered this as a welcome step towards a more peaceful neighborhood for its economic development.
President Xi's visit will further promote an all-around cooperation between the two countries, especially in the field of infrastructure. The two sides are discussing and identifying a series of infrastructure cooperation projects. I believe that through this state visit, China and the Philippines will officially become partners of the Belt and Road Initiative, following the principle of wide consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefits.
So the Philippines, with its beautiful natural landscape, has attracted many Chinese tourists. China has become the second largest source of tourists to the Philippines last year. The ambassador also expects that the two countries will promote personnel and people-to-people exchanges in all areas.
The number of Chinese tourists to the Philippines has exceeded 1 million per year, and we expect it to surpass 1.5 million this year. The exchanges between the two countries in various fields, including economy, technology, and education, are also getting active. Most importantly, the cooperation and exchanges between our local governments have been advancing by leaps and bounds. Now there are over 300 flights between the two countries each week, which shows the rapidly growing momentum and the huge potential of people-to-people exchanges.
As a conclusion, it is imperative that the Philippines be accommodating yet vigilant in its relationship with China under its independent foreign policy. Given the shift in its foreign policy, the challenge for the Philippines under Duterte is to be consistently cautious in its policy implementation. Foreign policy must be supervised by established institutions in order to put a check on decisions based on personal impulses, which have been the trademark of the Duterte administration so far.
Alongside President Duterte's promise of change came a shift in the Philippines' relationship with some countries. The president wanted to veer away from the United States towards China and Russia, hurling insults at then U.S. President Barack Obama amid America's criticism of his war on drugs. But maritime law expert J. Batong Bakal says the Philippines did not completely detach itself from its traditional ally.
Hindi rin natin pinawalang bisa yung ating relationship with the United States. Nakita natin na pagdating sa Marawi, mas naunang tumulong ang US kaysa sa ibang bansa. No? At madali nating nahihingi ang kanilang assistance, whether it's in intelligence or support.
But Batong Bakal says this distance is enough to endanger the country's rights over the West Philippine Sea, as China's reclamation and militarization of the disputed waters continue.
At dahil nga hindi natin ina-antagonize ang China, hindi tayo masyadong umiimek, nagawa nila yung gusto nilang gawin. Kung panalo man tayo sa independent foreign policy, talo tayo pagdating sa ating pagdepensa sa ating mga karapatan at dun sa West Philippine Sea.
The president's friendlier approach to China seemed to have been rewarded. He brought home $24 billion in deals and projects that could generate at least 2 million jobs in the next 5 years. Although some of the deals had been put into question, as some of the Chinese firms involved were found to have controversial track records. Reports of Filipino fishermen getting harassed by China at Scarborough Shoal subsided. China lifted its travel advisory against the Philippines and restrictions on Philippine fruit exports. The gesture seemed to have come with a price. During Manila's hosting of the ASEAN Summit, the chairman's statement did not make any reference to the country's victory in the arbitration court or any explicit mention of China's land reclamation and respect for international law. China studies expert Eileen Baviera says the move had an effect on the Philippines' credibility.
Dahil dun sa posisyon ng presidente, ayaw niyang itulak yung arbitration. Sa ngayon, nagtataka tuloy yung ibang mga partners, no? Dati namang sumusuporta. No? Parang para sa kanila, kung binigay mo na nga sa Pilipinas yung arbitration award, panalo na nga dyan. No? Kung hindi sila magtutulak niyan, sino? No? Parang sino tayo para magpakita ng suporta sa Pilipinas? Kung sila mismo, hindi nila tinitingnan na urgent yung pag-handle ng issue na yan.
President Duterte tried raising the ruling in a conversation with Chinese President Xi Jinping, but China allegedly responded with a threat of war.
Sinabi ko talaga harap-harapan, that is ours and we intend to drill oil there. Sagot sa akin, well, we are friends, we do not want to quarrel with you, according to China. We want to maintain the present warm relationship. But if you force the issue, we'll go to war.
And this is where perfect timing should make all the difference.
I'm Jean Clarice Jonas.
Heidi and Sofia Westerman.
Andre Bautista.
Yancy May Torres.
China, hands off the Philippines.
We must defend Philippine territory and assert sovereignty.
China, get out!
Philippines will never be a province of China.